Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay. Now everyone looks frozen to me, so I'm suspecting that's my connection.
Yeah, we're good on our end, Maria, but you're a bit choppy.
Yeah.
Your audio is fine.
Okay, well, if my audio is fine, then we'll just proceed and you can, well, you can't wave or anything. I don't have any video for you guys. Everyone's frozen. You can notify me if you
All
can't
right, we'll
hear
do.
the audio. Thank you. I just want to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded. I believe that all of us know each other, except we have one visitor today, and that would be Jessica. So I'm hoping you can just introduce yourself and let everyone know who you are.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. My name's Jessica Connor. I use she, they pronouns. I'm a clinical psychologist by training, and I work as the director of behavioral health over at Northeast Pediatrics and Adolescent Medicine. And just super excited to be here and learn more about the CSB.
Great. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Okay. Yes, welcome. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? No? Okay. Just a note, because my connection seems to be unstable. If I'm missing something, someone please just speak up. Apparently my audio is better than my video today. I apologize for that. The first order of business would be the approval of the minutes. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting? Travis, thank you very much. And a second. Stu, thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Just the second to the last paragraph, it says Dr. Moylan. Isn't it supposed to say Dr. Morad? You?
Yes, I think.
I'll change that. Okay, that was all I wanted to say.
Agreed. Good catch, Jan.
Maria, we're not hearing you if you're talking. You're back.
Okay,
You're back.
I'm back.
Yep.
My apologies. I don't know why this is happening. Okay, so if I could have a motion to approve the minutes?
We had that. And it was
Okay,
second.
and a second. Thank you very much. And all in favor? I am going to make the assumption that everyone was in favor and the minutes are therefore approved. Thank you. Privilege of the floor. Any questions or comments from anyone present? And again, I am not seeing anything. If I am missing something, I hope someone will let me know. Thank
I
you.
don't see any hands, Maria. I think you're okay.
Okay, thank you. Any announcements? Nope. Okay,
I
so
have
we
one.
will.
Travis has one. Hold on.
Oh, Travis, thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think it's probably widely known, but just in case anyone on the committee doesn't know, the executive director for Cornell Health has left, and we are now searching for a replacement. So,
Travis, is there an interim director?
at the current time, the interims named are the 3 assistant directors who are serving. So they split up the responsibilities between the 3 assistant directors. The search has already been launched, and we are all waiting to see how that search goes.
Who are the assistant directors?
Wei Wong, Dr. Wei Wong, Sarah Rubenstein Gellis, and Eve Abrams are the 3 assistant directors.
Thank you.
So those duties are currently divided amongst the 3 of them who have ultimate faith in.
Great, thank you so much. Chair's report. I do not have a report today, so we can move on to the commissioner's report. Frank?
Thanks, Maria. I've got 3 things to update folks on. One, I believe this will be our last Zoom meeting. I believe the middle of June, the law changes and the county's going through the process now of passing a local law to adopt the procedure. You can participate via Zoom, but you would not count towards quorum. It's a weird thing. So there has to be a quorum of people in person in order for the meeting to have a quorum. But it still leaves the ability for, individuals to participate remotely if they were needed. So I see 2 hands. Jan, I saw yours first.
Is that particular to Tompkins County? And I'm asking because many of the disability boards and associations I belong to believe it's much more inclusive to also have people be able to do it via video or, or Zoom or whatever. So I'm wondering why we can't continue to have that option available to people who may have trouble traveling or just, getting in the building or whatever it is.
Yeah, my understanding is it's not exclusive to Tompkins County, that they are just codifying what was allowed through the state requirements. I can certainly, I agree with you. And I think that's one of the big concerns that's been voiced with this about the inclusivity of not being able to participate remotely. And the other thing to understand is that this is related to public meetings law, right? So it only pertains to folks that have certain authorities, right? So I believe the Board of Health and the Community Services Board are maybe the only advisory boards to the legislature that fall under this requirement. There might be one other that I'm just not, aware of. But I remember when we were going through COVID that there was only a few of the advisory boards that actually had authority onto themselves, which required them to follow the public meeting laws. So if you're part of another board that doesn't fall under the public meeting laws, this would not pertain to you. And of course, you could, continue to do things fully remotely, is my understanding. But I'll get more info. I've asked someone to check in with the county attorney on where this all stands.
Thank you.
Sure. Larry, I saw your hand next.
So this is exactly what I was afraid of, which is that what we've learned from the pandemic is being quickly forgotten, which is that having a variety of ways for people to participate meaningfully in meetings is a good thing. There is no real reason why people who are participating remotely can't be considered as being present for the meeting, since we hear and see everything and can have as much conversation as we need to have in order to make decisions. So in addition to the stuff around disability, I think we should, or Frank as the mental health and public health director, or Maria as the board chair, should write expressing our or at least expressing a concern, because why should we lose the things that we've gained by learning what it takes to actually have everybody participate? It just doesn't make any sense. It makes me very sad.
I can certainly pass along the concerns to the legislature. Sheila, you had your hand up.
Yes, I concur with Larry, and I'm wondering if there is a way, can we consult with the attorney, the county attorney on this? But my question is specific to the subcommittees. can we continue to meet remotely? What I've found out, and I don't know, I can't speak for the other two subcommittees, but for the DD subcommittee, it seems that we've had good participation because people don't have to travel and they're able to participate remotely. So I'm wondering if what you're saying, Frank, extends to the subcommittees.
Under the previous county attorney's interpretation, it did not. The subcommittees themselves do not have authority. They make recommendations to you all as the board. And so therefore he did not feel they fell under that, that same public meeting requirement, which means you would still be able to meet remotely.
That's good.
So we'll follow up. I just wanted to give folks a heads up that you may be hearing from us that next month we've got to try to get as many folks in person as possible in order to achieve quorum. And there may be creative ways to get around it by rotating or other things that we can work through all that. I just need to understand what the rules are going to be. And I think the county's still working through their process of figuring out how they're going to comply with the state requirements. So more to come.
And just for the record, that's not the first Monday, it's the second Monday because it's a holiday.
Correct, because of July 4th. Yep. All right. Next thing I wanted to mention was the homelessness and the encampment. You've probably heard there's a good bit of conversation going on. There's been a small private work group looking at ways to try to address the encampment. Similar work that's been done by previous task force that has really come to the same conclusions, that there's many different needs and there's no silver bullet that will address it. But that group does have interest in trying to make the encampments provide more services in the encampment, things like showers and bathrooms and some structures that folks could potentially live in. It's a difficult conversation, as you can imagine. It is not a work group that has been technically sanctioned by either the city or the county. There are a couple of common council people, a legislator, and some private business owners, as well as some of the human service providers that support homelessness, support those that are houseless. I was asked by the county administrator to represent the county on that committee as they're expanding a bit. So I went to their first meeting I guess it was last week. I went for the first time to their meetings last week, and they are similar. They are at a similar place where everyone else that has tried to address this gets to, where there's an idea. And then ultimately somebody has to agree to take on the liability and costs. And that's where things start to stall. But I think there's a bit more momentum this time, and there are elected officials participating, decision makers. So, I'm hopeful that more will come out of this particular conversation than perhaps we've had in the past. But wanted you all to be aware that we are actively working with the group in that conversation and trying to help support them and provide whatever information and resources that we might have available to the group. Larry?
Just so other members of the board know, the mental health subcommittee met with, now I'm forgetting his name, Chris Teitelbaum from St. John's Community Services. They operate the shelter and other kinds of homeless programs, including the Friendship Center and some other support services aimed at getting people into jobs there. So we had a pretty extensive conversation with Chris at the May mental health subcommittee. And while I think there's general support for the idea, and nobody said, oh, this doesn't sound doable, or this doesn't sound like something we want to pursue, it seemed to us that there were a lot of details that need to be worked out, and that people from the mental health and substance abuse and DD community need to be involved. So I'm thrilled that you're going to be involved. I think one of the issues that I raised and other people seem to support is what happens if people don't want to go to these, what are now being described as campgrounds, not even cabins, but sort of campgrounds with minimal structure. Sort of, I think, for instance, if you went to Camp Barton or the similar Girl Scout camp, they're probably talking about something along those lines, which is platforms that can be made. But even that, I don't know. But they're not using the term housing, they're using the term campgrounds. One of the issues is, again, what happens to people who don't want to leave the jungle to go to this new space? I think as a board, we need to make sure that people are not coerced to use a program that they don't want to use, and that people are not harassed because of where they choose to live, especially since the jungle or the encampment in various forms has existed in Ithaca, and this I didn't know, for about 100 years. So people have been living outdoors because they're unhoused for longer than many of us, well, all of us have been alive, unless somebody is a kind of person. So I don't want us to say, well, this will solve the problem and there won't be an encampment. And I think it's important for us as people who are responsible for certain services, including homeless services, to stand up for people who choose not to use or just can't use particular services.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of different opinions and ideas about what we can do. What I said to the group is I view this proposal as harm reduction. It's not a solution to the problem. It's just trying to make life more tolerable and a little bit safer for people that are in, a very difficult place. And I'm hopeful that folks are looking at it in more of that perspective than thinking this is a solution to, our homeless situation in the county. But all good points. And I think there's a lot of different opinions and thoughts about how and what should happen. And I think ultimately that is what causes some of the stalling to happen. And I'm hopeful that we'll have there's some momentum now that hopefully we can come to some common ground and start to make improvements for some of these folks.
Frank.
Right. One last quick point, which is when Chris was speaking to us, he said that there aren't a lot of these models in the nation, and that some of them have succeeded and some of them have not succeeded. So it's not like this is a model that works everywhere.
Sheila?
Yes, thanks, Larry, for that information and your perspective. That was very helpful for me and perhaps others in the group as well. My question is, to your point, Frank, this is not a solution to homelessness. You're seeing it as harm reduction, and I agree with that. But I think the messaging will be really important. People will need to, the group or whatever evolves from this group, needs to make sure that the message that the community gets is this is not going to end homelessness. It's not going to end the jungle. This is what it's going to do, and be very explicit about that, so there isn't misinformation.
Yeah, I just, I'm going to jump in on that. There, what we're talking about is a very specific subset of unhoused people, and that's chronically unhoused. And so the solutions are more intractable. And I'm curious if anyone has recently done any kind of interviewing of people there to find out what they want. So for example, if you were to offer some type of housing options, is it even wanted? And, you know, as far as an evidence base, you know, for strategies that might help, I think a housing first approach. So no strings attached, don't have to get sober, not required to engage with services, but that all of the above are available to a greater extent.
Jan,
It
did you wanna-
sounded like that was the model that they were talking about. We had a couple of concerns because part of the impetus for this was that residents of, I guess it's Nate's Floral Estates, had a lot of complaints about the encampment and the homeless people. So again, we wanted to make sure that this was seen as a transition program for some people. And then the other issue is that it can't really be a transition program unless you have housing available for them to transition into after they, you know, are ready to move from these sort of very simplistic cabins into some kind of real housing. So we sort of felt like we could support it in theory, but really a whole lot was going to depend on what people actually came up with. And we did want to make sure that it wasn't seen as an excuse to kick people out and try to shut down the jungle.
I
Jan?
just wanted to answer Elise's question. I asked the question of Chris if they had any sort of data or studies or anything that would give them an idea how many people would actually, you know, be up for this, because as you say, some of the same people that don't want to be housed may be in that group. And he said there was, but he didn't refer to it because he didn't have information with him. And that I just wanted to say that also that what Paul said is really important to think about, that he said something like, what was it, for every, like, I don't know, that there, for every big group of people they're serving, there might be 2 housing options out there for them if they're lucky. So to me, it seems like it's just almost wasted effort, because really what we need to do is push for some sort of permanent housing, or at least a place that they can go if they do want to.
Yeah, and this last 5 minutes is a microcosm of the conversation that every time this comes up, right? There's differing opinions on what we should do, how big the problem is, you know, what are good steps to take. And, you know, ultimately my take is anything that we're doing to help provide someone a roof over their head is worth spending time on, as long as we recognize it's, you know, it's one step in a big giant puzzle that's, you know, got to be worked on as well. So I appreciate all the feedback, and certainly we'll bring that to the group. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention was the branding efforts for our new name and logo continue. We did get a first round of names, potential names from the consultant, and our working group took a look at them and provided some feedback, and they are working on giving us some more options. So it's been an interesting process, and they've been very receptive to feedback and hearing our input. And so hopefully we'll be reviewing a second round sometime later this week. And that process continues along. So just wanted you guys to be aware of that. And that's all I have by way of updates, Maria.
I'm sorry to jump in again. Who is the decision maker about the name change, and what's the role for the Community Services Board and the Board of Health about this name change?
Yeah, ultimately the legislature is the final decision maker because they established the department through county charter. But you all will have an opportunity. We want you all to hopefully support whatever we end up putting forward to the legislature. So you'll have that opportunity. We invited participation. Sully has been receiving all the documents. I think her schedule just hasn't lined up to be able to be to any of the meetings yet. But if anyone wants to, if the board wants to, send somebody else, we're happy to have, a representative as part of that group, because ultimately we want both the Community Service Board and Board of Health to support whatever we put forward to the legislature for their consideration. Cool. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Harmony, Deputy Commissioner's report.
Thank you. So I just wanted to give you an update, and I'm going to share my screen with you for a minute. The local services plan, we normally would be working hard on the plan for next year, but they have delayed that process and at the state level because they want to update the local services plan format. They're going to incorporate information around diversity and equity and inclusion in the next document that we get. And they're also designing it in a way that they're going to be able to pull data out of the plan itself in a way that they can start to really analyze all the input they get from every county. So they have to sort of sift through all of these plans that we submit. And so far, they've never had a way to actually pull the information in a way that would help them look for trends and patterns beyond them just reading what everyone's rating and the kinds of goals that people are selecting. So I think that will be a much better process for them. So we should be hearing something in late summer, early fall. So that really doesn't give us, if we're supposed to have that plan for the next year in January, doesn't give us as much time to put that plan together. So I just wanted to invite you to give me some ideas, maybe at the next meeting, on how you would like to go about that process as far as getting information. Clearly the subcommittees do a lot of this work, but it's also maybe there are other groups that you think we should focus group or do a survey with or collect data in some other ways. So just want to put that out there for you to start thinking about how you'd like to collect information. And the document I'm going to share with you, hopefully you can see it has like a green strip down the middle of the page. And I will send this to you electronically. We're not going to go through it step by step. Larry's seen an earlier version of this. His has lots of cheat sheets on it because I did it by subcommittee. So basically what I've taken is every one of our objectives and goals out of the local services plan and color coded them. So you see, first it starts with developmental disabilities. It has the goal area and then the objective. And over here in description is the actual objective. And then under status, it says, have we achieved that? Where are we at? Is it partially achieved? How are we doing? And you'll see yellows every now and then and reds, and how that's really laid out is for the subcommittees and you as a board members to see where are we at in achieving the things that we set out to achieve in our local services plan for this year. So a lot of green, so that's really good. Yellow means warning, red means we got to do something probably pretty quickly. My thought being, since we're going to have a very short window to do our plan for next year, let's get some of these things knocked out as soon as we can on this plan for this year. So you'll see here substance use. And then the last one is mental health. And there are some that we were in discussion about around workforce recruitment retention, having a meeting perhaps for the entire board and inviting people from the subcommittees to come and present some of their ideas, because the subcommittees have all done some work on identifying what they think might be some strategies that the community could use. So having a larger group, maybe put that all together, put like a final plan together, and we could share that with members of the community. So you'll see, though, a lot of really good work has been done because it is mostly green. There's just a couple of little areas that we still need to work on. So I'll send this to you for your review and comment if you're feeling, well, you missed a section. That could certainly be the case. The other thing I just wanted to briefly show you is this form right here, which is kind of hard to see. I feel like it's all kind of squished in the corner of the page and I don't really know how to fix that. But what I wanted you to see right here, it's just an example of what we did this year for the contract management. This is an example of one of our contract partners. And I'm just showing it up here as an example. You'll see down what we did was how much, how well the agency is doing. So every agency helped identify specific goals that they wanted to measure. We looked at their contracts and evaluated if they were current, if things had changed, because they hadn't really been reviewed in a long time. Then we also got some goals around revenue and expenses. How much, what's the cost per unit, right? That's an important number for people. How much does it cost for every piece of service you do? And what's your service? It could be a contact hour, whatever it is, it's described under this how well section. And then how better off? How do you know that what you're doing is actually making a difference? You'll see way at the top, there's a local services planning goal. How does this particular contract fall under our local services plan? What kind of goal is it addressing? And so that it's aligned right there with your local service planning goals. And then you have the actual outcome measures. And then there's a nice section in here for people to give you some qualitative information about some big achievements that they've experienced, any barriers they're having, and then it's signed. And then you see under here is for every program has their own outcome measure sheet. So I wanted to share that with you because we just got through Q1. That's January, February, March, and then they're due in April. And because we had changed the entire process and that was a steep learning curve, took a long time to redevelop all of these sheets and then teach people how to actually use this form. We gave them a little bit of a delay in submitting their forms. But I think once we get more data, you may want to look at them in the third quarter or whatever, then you can start looking at and seeing what's the impact. Every program has their short impact statement. They have a summary of what they're achieving. And then you can really start to look at, is this program serving all the people they say they're going to serve? How much does it cost per person? And one of the things we asked everybody to do when we met with them to develop this was tell us your true cost, because sometimes budgeters find a way to make it look like the program's really breaking even because maybe they're bringing in dollars from something else that really probably doesn't go there. It's like, we really want to know if this program's not paying for itself. That's really good information for us to have available to us because that can be a concern. If it's a great program, it's doing a lot of really good things, but it's really not a sustainable model. We want to know that before someone says, I just can't do this program anymore in the community. So those were my two highlights for you today. Larry, I see you got a question, then Sheila. Oh, Larry, you're on mute.
Two quick things. One is I'm really glad to see the usable format so it'd be interesting to decide when the subcommittees and the board wants to and how we want to look at them and how we want to use them. And the second thing is just to say, not all programs are, bring in revenue. So not all programs we fund bring. I didn't understand, I guess, what your last statement was.
Oh, so basically like the dollars that they get to provide the service, some of them, that's all of the dollars they use. Some of them get other funding from other sources. So we ask them to put whatever dollars you have to provide this service. Then we know exactly how much does it cost for it's amazing how some services that are pretty intensive really don't cost a lot. Like it's just to measure kind of like the value of the program. But then there's some programs that maybe even when they put other dollars towards this whole thing, it's really not covering the cost of that program. And that means down the road, they might not be able to do it anymore. So we don't want a heads up on that. I don't want people to feel like they have to sort of fudge it. Just tell us what it really is, even if it isn't great news.
Okay, I got it. I see what you're saying. I got confused by the way what I heard you say. You may not have said it.
Yeah.
For instance, You know, an INR program doesn't bring in, you know.
No, it's just the money that they're getting to provide the service. It does, that's the money that they're using.
That's what you mean by revenue.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, because I thought about it. I think about that word in a different way. Okay.
Right, you're thinking that they're billing or they're charging or something like that, but their revenue in this program is coming from these dollars in their contract. And
Got it.
most of the services are free, but that's the money they're using.
Got it. Thank you.
Uh-huh. And I think Sheila?
Yeah, Harmony, the DD subcommittee has two co-chairs who are not members of the Community Services Board. So will you be sending that status check of the local services plan to the chairs of these subcommittees?
Yes, yes. And then I'll review it in the subcommittees too.
Okay.
But I just wanted you as the board to see where we're at, to sort of have like a broad snapshot of where we're at in achieving all these goals as well, because we're halfway through the year.
Yeah, it was very helpful. And I think if the chairs of the DD subcommittee, because I saw some red and yellow, they could look at that and then kind of, build conversation in the agenda to address the issues that haven't been achieved yet.
Right, exactly. That was the thought process. I had worked with Larry on the mental health one so far, and then I'll do the other ones
Okay.
as we go for this. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have a discussion of the bylaws and the charter, and I believe Stu and Sheila were going to lead us through that discussion.
Okay. We have met a number of times, at least 3 or 4, a lot of phone conversations, texting, email. Not everybody's able to get to our meetings, but we've come up with what we consider some pretty good recommendations, going through the old bylaws and having you, I think those bylaws were, the recommendations were sent to you folks. We got a yes?
Yes.
Okay. So perhaps we can put them on the screen and go through them and compare them to the bylaws. Last time was 9 years ago, July 1st, 2013. What I'd prefer to do is kind of just go through some of the dialogue that we had discussed, particularly when we were talking about the Community Service Board. There's language that talks about the Mental Health Board. I think we want to make that uniform. But I'm also hearing, and this is a question maybe for Frank, since we're considering changing the name, at least for our documentation and our bylaws for us, the Community Service Board, it's a pretty strong recommendation to use that name versus the Mental Health Board. So, you guys can nod or say yes or no, but I'm going to go through perhaps one by one and see if I can get some more feedback on establishing these recommendations. Talked about the mission statement, and I think Karen is getting, here we go. This is good. Thank you, Karen. So let's move down to 2. Yes. Yeah, the mission statement. It's great to have a mission statement, but when we were talking amongst ourselves, we thought that maybe that's not something that we want to be able to do. The word confines us in the bylaws, makes it inflexible for a mission statement. At least for now, we're going to pass on a mission statement. The purpose, what we say here, using the language from the state statute. Well, the Substance Abuse subcommittee is no longer the substance abuse subcommittee. It's the substance use. MRDD is DD. And we want some acknowledgement that the names are going to be the names. If there's any change in the names, let's put that into our bylaws. The names just do not reflect the reality of what we call our committees, as well as the progressive identification of gender identification. I've noticed that more and more meetings that I attend, he and the she and the they are representative, and I think we should represent that in our bylaws as well. Moving on to number 5, appointments. We've talked about this, and I think we finally ironed out that we really don't want employees of agencies on the mental health board. They may be biased. Of course, they could say that they're not going to vote, but the majority of folks that I've heard over the last couple of years about this is, let's just reduce the conflict of interest by not having them on the board. I think that does still leave room for the subcommittees to have some of that representation, although we're talking about the board appointments. So not having Tompkins County Mental Health Department members eligible, we want to write that into the board. Some smaller things, we noticed that the frequency of the board meeting is in there as 4 times a year. We actually meet as many as 10. We're scheduled for 11, but usually something happens and there's 10. So we want to change the frequency from 4 to 10.
Stu, it's Frank. Can I interrupt you for a second? There was something that I failed to do during my report, and I wanted to address it now because Kaki needs to leave the meeting. So Karan, could you take the share screen down just for a minute? Sorry about that, everyone. And Kaki, I want, if it's okay with you, Maria, I'd like to give Kaki the floor for a minute. Kaki, did you want to make an announcement?
Oh, I guess I didn't. So I guess it hasn't been announced. I've decided to resign my position on the board and open that up for some new blood, for finding some new members. I'm really excited about all the new members that have been joining lately. The primary reason is just, as Larry was noting, being able to do things remotely has made it a lot easier for a lot of things to happen and a lot of people to do things. And I realized that I had way overextended myself in all kinds of things that I can now do remotely and not having to be out somewhere. So as I looked at all of what was on my plate, and I sort of assessed it in terms of where I thought I could make the biggest impact. And particularly in terms of my county work, the Youth Services Board, I decided, is where I can have the most impact, and make a difference. And being that voice for the issues of this board and for the stakeholders that this board is particularly concerned about. And in fact, I'm sort of happy to announce part of it coming from a DD subcommittee meeting that was held specifically looking at camps, but we got into looking at all of youth programming. Been able to get the Youth Services Department to recognize that, yeah, the county is responsible for access and inclusion of youth with mental health issues, with other disabilities, DD, any of that. So they've already started doing some training. In fact, looking at redeveloping one of the staff positions to have specific responsibilities in training others and providing technical assistance to all of our youth programming. So I'm excited by that, and that those things are starting to move forward, and that I'll continue being a voice for the issues of this board for the youth, and working on that. It's been a real pleasure to work with all of you for the last about 10 years. And I, wish you the best, and will certainly pay attention to what's going on and with the merger of the department, that I think is terribly exciting. And just gonna go about it in a different way, looking at how I can make the changes. Sheila?
Yeah, I just want to add that Kaki, you've been great on as we're talking about the bylaws. You were a very active member of the group, and you did a tremendous amount of research on the statutes and helping with the clarification of the language. So I do want to acknowledge that your role in this bylaws discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Kaki, I have a letter that we'll be sending to you from Maria and myself that I'd just like to read for the group right now. On behalf of the entire Community Services Board in Tompkins County, we'd like to express our sincere admiration for your service, dedication, knowledge, skills, input, invested time, and energy on the Community Services Board since joining in 2013. The endless hours you have spent and the personal and professional interest you have shown in the best interest of our community is so very appreciated. We honor you for so many efforts, but most recently as a member of the bylaw committee, you utilized your professional skills to thoroughly research the statutes needed to be considered in the language that would make our product more inclusive and up to date. Kaki, thank you for chairing the board as we thoughtfully considered the pros and cons of merging with the Department of Health. You were instrumental in navigating strong feelings to arrive at a good plan. Your connection to the individuals on the Board of Health made things even smoother. We appreciate all your efforts. You are a great part of the board, and we will certainly miss you. We wish you success and good luck in all of your endeavors. And so we'll be sending that out to you. And I just want to offer my thanks. You've been on the board as long as I've been a part of the organization. And I appreciate the leadership that you've shown and the support that you've provided to me in the department during your time, and wish you the best as you go forward.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And as I say, I'll be in touch to keep moving the youth piece of this forward.
Great. Thank you so much, Kaki.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks everyone for indulging me, and my apologies for the interruptions too.
Not a problem. Worthwhile. It was wow. Okay. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Yes, Kaki was very helpful in our recommendations, doing lots of research for our bylaws committee. It also includes Mary, who's not here, and Sheila, and Jan, and the four of us contacting each other. How about this? And what do you think about that? And lots of emails and texts, mostly emails going back and forth. So I left off at the meetings. We want to change them from, it says 4 to 10. Again, we meet approximately 11 times. We don't have an August meeting. So consider that for our new bylaws.
Right. And just if I can interject here, Stu,
Sure.
We had agreed at a previous meeting that annual meeting of the board, we're going to call it annual organizational meeting.
Right, that's the January meeting.
Correct, yes.
Right. Yep. That's where we do the election.
Right.
And the slate comes out the month before in December. Very nice letter, Frank. I got to tag on to that. What was it, Christmas? Mary came around and distributed kind of a goodies basket and a nice letter from the board. That was a wonderful touch.
Well, credit for all of that goes to Karan. She's the spearheader of that, and there's lots of feedback from others to make those happen. So I just get to put my name on things. So
Okay, well, pass it down the line. It was very graciously accepted by me. And my wife liked it too. Oh, you got something.
Okay.
Let's see, meetings of the board, change to read, special meetings of the board may be called at any time by chair. We're gonna eliminate that because the board president, chair, can do that anytime. I don't think we need language for that. Let's see, on mine, it goes to the next page. Eliminate executive session of the board. Again, didn't seem necessary for us to give that in the bylaws, a provision, a special meeting. I believe we got rid of 2 officers years ago. Does it really still say that? I don't have the composition in front of me. We had a treasurer and we had a secretary. And those folks no longer exist. So we want to have language to reflect that. Let's see, officers, chairperson. I think everybody has been in agreement with the officers and how that is performed, documentation. And there's a written report that the board chair does. Scratching my head, and been on here a while and don't remember that going on. So we'd like to eliminate the need or the words written report having to be there.
Right. So there again, if I could just interject too. So there is a report, but since I've been on the board certainly, and people who have been on longer than me can probably speak to that. But I don't think we've ever had to do a written report, even when I was chair. But certainly we do report out.
I think the closest we got to written reports was when Khaki was chair. She liked written reports from the subcommittee chairs. Some did it, some didn't. But the chair for the board, I don't remember getting that or having that done on a regular basis. Let's see, Commissioner of Mental Health Services. Who is that? What is that? The section will be revised with language from the updated county charter. We can't propose something that we don't really know how it's going to turn out. So we're kind of leave that authority out for a while and not revise that language unless we get something sooner than later. Talking with Frank, I think last meeting indicated that maybe we'll get something by the end of the year. I don't know how long we want to wait to revise our bylaws, but let's hear what we're going to be calling Frank.
yeah, just for clarity, that you're going to have that over the summer. We need to have these bylaws in front of you all in September in order for it to get to the legislature and make it through all of their processes. But it's going to coincide with the charter updating. So I'm working on the charter language with the county attorney's office right now, and I wanted to kind of see what came out of the bylaws work from both boards, so we can incorporate whatever needed to be incorporated. There. So yeah, that will be way before the end of the year. I'm hoping sometime early July, we'll have some draft charter language, including some of these other things worked out.
Good. Okay. So that should fit together. So we'll be able to put the language in our bylaws as well. It's just a matter of what you're going to come up with or what's going to be the name. Let's see, number 9, committees. There had been an executive committee. Executive committee used to be, again, the chair, the chairs, of the subcommittees, the secretary, the treasurer, and they used to meet and have kind of an informal board meeting. We haven't done that in years. So we propose to eliminate the concept of executive committee. Again, what's very nicely stated here, I think Mary wrote most of this up as we gave her some feedback. She writes, we feel any emergence issue could be addressed by calling a special meeting of the full board. And it's referenced in another section, section 4.3. Nominating committee, when I've been on this committee for a while, and it used to be kind of an easy committee because people didn't come and go as much as they have over the last 3 years. So getting another member on the nominating committee, we have 4. Then we looked at the language and it says, well, it's supposed to be 3. So we'd like to change that to at least 3 members to give us the option of having 4, which we have now. And it's been pretty busy. As we go into executive session, we'll make more comments about that as well. Special review committee. I think Mary was our special review, and she said she hardly has work to do on that. So we're seeking kind of clarification on that. I don't know if Mary got in touch with you, Frank, and see if we need to have that in the bylaws or not, but we're looking to eliminate that if.
Yeah, I don't think we can eliminate it. We are required to do special review because of our licensure and because you are our advisory board. I believe your policies and in the absence of policies, the bylaws have to say something to that effect. I have staff investigating that and looking at what the appropriate language should be, but I don't think that's something we can actually remove.
Okay, so we'll keep that the same because it says, what, 2 members? We have Mary. Is there another member besides Mary that's on the special review committee that I don't know about?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
and just if I could interject again to actually just a question to Frank. So in our current bylaws, we have a lot of conversation about, the, what the special review committee does.
Yeah.
If I'm understanding you correctly, Frank, we still have to include all that language, or can we just mention that we have to include the appointment function?
I asked staff to look into what language needs to be in there. I'm sure the regulation says what the oversight board requirements are. So I just need to find out what that is. Whether it needs to be 4 paragraphs long, I don't know, or if it can just be a statement that says, this exists, we're going to have a membership, that kind of thing.
Okay, so that's subject to revision based on the information that you provide us, Frank.
Yeah, we'll get some updated language for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
actually,
Stu.
I agreed that some of this could be streamlined, but that takes up almost the whole page on our nominating committee language, special review, and a lot of things that follow it. So we are up to subcommittees. Change the last sentence to read, in the event that a non-board chairperson is elected, which seems to happen a lot more these days. They will be invited to represent the subcommittee at the CSB meeting. Now, in the past, we've said, well, that person should be a board member. Well, maybe not, but as long as the person shows up and can give us some feedback as to what happened at the meeting and is a integral part of our board, I think that's the main emphasis. And we thought it would be a good idea we've heard from board members as well that they would like to change that. So we're making.
Can I interject and make a suggestion there, that if the non-board chairperson could also delegate that responsibility, so we would certainly welcome them at the CSB meeting But we do have board members who are members of the subcommittees. So if for some reason the chairperson was not able to attend a CSB meeting, I think to have language that they could delegate that to a board member who is, or someone, doesn't necessarily need to be a board member, but a member of that committee to attend the board meeting so that there's representation at each, just a suggestion.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion, Maria, because I'm on that committee, the DD subcommittee, and I think it would probably be difficult for the co-chairs to attend every CSB meeting. I don't think that'd be a realistic option, whether it was them or someone else. And you're right, there are board members on that committee, and certainly we could report out as needed. So we like that language. So we'll take that, Stu, back to Mary and
I like that too. Yeah. The idea is to bring representation, and how we get that representation to the board. There's a lot of different ways. I think we're close to the end of our recommendations. We have a similar subcommittee amount of meetings listed as 4. We'd like to change that to 10. Again, nothing takes place in meetings in August. There's always a meeting that seems to get canceled or not rescheduled, but we schedule 11. Let's try for 10 and make that our policy instead of 4. And this might be a work in progress, but we've put down, we're considering appointing representative liaisons to the Board of Health to ensure ongoing collaboration and communication. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, but we want to be able to have some language in there. And I guess based on what Frank is saying, that charter is going to be together in a few months' time. So based on what that says, we may have some language to have a representative or a liaison. It's my understanding, Frank, that we're still going to have the 2 boards, correct?
Yes, correct. And I don't expect anything about a liaison would be in the charter. I think the charter will just continue to establish the 2 boards, and then it'll be up to the 2 boards to kind of determine. And I don't know that it necessarily needs to be in the bylaws, but my hope is that as you guys are coming closer to a draft, a more final draft, the Board of Health is as well, and that the 2 groups can meet together, not the whole boards, but the 2 groups working on the bylaws to figure out, where it makes sense for crossover and consistency.
Yeah, I like that idea, Frank. My concern, again, putting that in the bylaws, it's, it doesn't give us the flexibility. I mean, we can still do it. My concern before, when we kind of were attending Board of Health meetings, it was not always easy to get representatives at each board meeting. So I think that's, I think we need to think about that. But right now, based on the information I have, I think I would be hesitant to actually put that requirement in the bylaws.
Agree. Yes. I think it's more of a, it's written here, more to discuss. So we're discussing. And it's something else to consider. We went through a process on the nominating committee to spell out exactly what we do, how we do it, the procedure. Jan and I and Mary, who else is on that? Maria. We wanted to have it become written and exact so that folks who didn't make it to the board, well, what's your procedure? How do you pick things? It's not arbitrary, and it hasn't been arbitrary, but we've written it down. And then the thought was, well, maybe we should put this in the bylaws. And then we said, no, I don't think that procedure should be in the bylaws, as there are a number of other procedures that take place in our board, or the way we do things, that it just doesn't seem, at least the 4 of us felt, didn't seem necessary to put into the bylaws. So I bring that up for a discussion and to let folks know that there are procedures for a number of things. I use the nominating committee as an example. There's a number of other procedures that just not written in the bylaws. I don't know if anybody wants any of that in the bylaws, but we're mentioning it here to
Yeah.
solicit discussion.
Yeah, Stu, let me interject again, if you don't mind. Exactly it. Again, the bylaws are not terribly flexible. So I think we want to, in some ways, I think less is more. I certainly support, clarifying our protocols in a written way, in a written fashion. I think that we've had conversations about how do we onboard new members. I think Jan has spoken about that on a few occasions. So I think there's a need, but I don't think we want to put those, procedures or protocols directly into the bylaws.
Right, that was a popular theme, that we didn't want to put anything in the bylaws that restricted us from having flexibility.
Right.
So questions,
you.
thoughts? You're welcome.
I think all the changes that were mentioned sound good to me. I didn't have any problems with any of them.
Larry?
Thank you all for your work on that.
Can we go back? I just have a question about who we're not allowing on the board. Can we go back to that?
Members of?
Contract agencies.
Yeah.
It doesn't say contract agencies, it says employees, of agencies funded.
Yeah, it's kind of worded weird, but yeah, I think the meaning is employees that are funded by Tompkins County Mental Health Department.
So Larry, are you suggesting that we should clarify that or add, be a little bit more specific?
Actually, I think we should make it, if I misread it, then other people will misread it. But I also, I know we reversed ourselves about people being on the subcommittees. Are we still saying that as a board, we want to not have community partners who have contracts with us? Or
Yeah,
do
I
we
think
want
that's what they're saying,
Okay, that's
isn't it?
fine.
I mean, I shouldn't speak for the committee. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Right. Remember, we had a lot of conversation around that, and it appeared, that most people agreed that it was okay for the subcommittees, but not for the board itself.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to make sure that because we've had such a long conversation about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, Larry, do you think we need to be a little bit more?
Yeah, if I misread it, then other people. So I think the sentence is clunky. So
Okay. So we'll take that under advisement, and when the committee meets again, we'll craft some language.
Absolutely.
Just to support what Larry was saying, when I first read it, it sounded like just people who worked for Tompkins County Mental Health could
Right.
not be on the board. So that's the part that's a little confusing when you're
Okay.
crafting that sentence.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I'm reading what is written compared to my own handwritten notes. And, my handwritten notes show that we were pretty clear about what we were saying. And although Mary did a wonderful job of writing most of this all up, I can see the point. When I read it too, it was like Tompkins County. No, we mean, okay, I had to reread it. So, I think we should adjust that as sentence.
Yeah.
And factually, it's actually incorrect. The mental health department doesn't fund the agencies. The local government unit funds the agencies, including the mental health department in a sense. Well, in a direction, actually.
Okay, so are there any other thoughts, comments? Hang on, I gotta scroll through the thing and see if Okay, because with the screen shared, I couldn't see if everybody was. Okay. Well, thank you very much. That was a tremendous amount of hard work that went into making those updates and changes, and we really appreciate all that you have done so far and look forward to seeing the final document.
Okay.
And just from a process perspective, Maria, so everyone's comfortable, there will be more iterations of this as the charter develops and such. But before it goes to the legislature, a final draft will come to this board for a vote to put forward to the legislature for their approval.
Right.
Thank you.
This is what we've got so far, and appreciate your feedback, Larry's as well. Larry, if you got a sentence or two that you'd like to text me, I'd certainly be willing, and it'd be helpful to put some of your language in there as well.
Okay. I think it's just clarifying what we mean by who are we talking about? We're not talking.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, the next item on our agenda is board leadership discussion, which is somewhat vaguely phrased. I, for personal reasons, am going to be tendering my resignation from the board. I will be chairing the next meeting, the one in July. And the standard, what the bylaws recommends under these circumstances is that the person identified as the vice chair would take over as the chair of the Community Services Board. Unfortunately, Elise, who is our vice chair, has plans to do that in a year and a half when my tenure would officially have been up, but is not able to do that.
Well, could I just clarify something, Maria?
Yes.
So by way of explanation, yeah, I'm on 4 boards right now and multiple committees, and I chair the New York State Rehabilitation Council, which is a ton of work. It's a state board, but I term off in December. So after this December, so January 23, I have more time.
Thank you for clarifying that. And if that would be something that you would be able to do in January, that would be wonderful. Mary has very graciously agreed that she could act as interim chair, but we did want to bring this to the board because there is the opportunity for other people who may perhaps have an interest. We wanted to talk about what the best process for having someone take on the chair position after July would be. So if people have thoughts that they would like to offer now, I wanted to bring it up so people could think about it. We can talk about it at the July meeting if there are other ideas. And if the backup plan at this point is that Mary would fulfill that role until Elise is able to take over.
So there's just 4 meetings left after you leave, right, Maria?
Right. Right.
And I'm certainly happy to hang out because the original promise was you can be vice chair for 2 years.
Yes.
So I'm certainly happy to hang out, for my full 2 years as vice chair.
Which brings up a loose end of Maria stepping down. She's not ready to take that role, understandably so. And yes, was told that she's going to be VP for 2 years. And we're going to be without a so-called VP if we're looking at least being as early as January to take the chair. We can still use somebody to volunteer. I know from the nominating committee, we approach people and people shake their head, no. So think about getting in touch with either myself or Maria, Elise, I'm trying to think, Mary, if you're interested in being a vice chair. And that could be flexible, and usually there's it's an apprenticeship a 2-year apprenticeship involved in that, but we certainly can use somebody that we know in the future would like to step up and be the chair.
Okay. Any other comments on that? Nope, we're good. Okay. So now next on the agenda, we would be moving into executive session.
I move we go into executive session.
Thank you, Stu. A second. Travis, thank you.
All right, then Jessica and Veronica, we'd ask if you guys could leave the meeting. We'd appreciate it. And we thank you both for joining us and hopefully see you next month. And give me 1 minute and I will stop streaming.